Some songs from the 1960s never got the spotlight they deserved, and yet decades later, they still sound just as good as the day they were recorded. These are those songs. Here are 10 forgotten 60s songs that are still incredible today. Number 10, Sunny by Bobby Hebb.
Sunny, thank you for the sunshine.
If you've heard this song, and chances are you have, you might not know the story behind it, and once you do, it changes everything.
Thank you for the sunshine bouquet.
Bobby Hebb was a Nashville-born musician who had grown up in music from almost the moment he could walk. His parents were both blind musicians who performed on the streets of Nashville. His older brother Harold and he worked as a song and dance team, starting when Bobby was just 3 years old. By his early teens, he was playing spoons with Grand Ole Opry star Roy Acuff, which, for a young black man in the 1950s South, was a remarkable thing.
Now the dark days are gone, the bright days are here.
Then came November the 1963. The day after President John F. Kennedy was assassinated, Bobby's brother Harold was stabbed to death outside a Nashville nightclub. 2 devastating losses back-to-back within 24 hours. Bobby didn't rush straight to the recording booth. He sat with the grief. He immersed himself in music to cope. And somewhere in that darkness, a song began to take shape, one that was the complete opposite of how he was feeling. He wanted to look for something brighter. He wanted to find a way through. That song was Sunny.
Thank you for that gleam that flows with grace.
He described writing it early one morning as the sun was rising. The sky turned purple and then gold, and the melody and the words came to him at the same time. Something he said almost never happens. The session took place on February 21st, 1966, at Bell Sound Studios in New York City. And Sunny was the last song recorded that day, nearly in overtime, with some musicians having already left.
Sunny one so true, yes, I love you.
Released in 1966, Sunny climbed to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, sitting just behind Summer in the City by The Lovin' Spoonful at its peak. It also reached number 3 on the R&B charts and number 12 in the UK. That summer, Bobby Hebb opened for the Beatles on their final American tour, performing at venues including Chicago's International Amphitheater and New York's Shea Stadium. Sunny was at its peak during those very shows, opening for the biggest band in the world with your own song sitting at number 2. That's not a small thing.
Sunny, thank you for the sunshine.
Number 9, For What It's Worth by Buffalo Springfield.
Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.
Most people who know this song assume it's about the Vietnam War. It isn't. In the fall of 1966, the Sunset Strip in Los Angeles was the center of the rock and roll world. Clubs lined the boulevard and thousands of young people came out every night to see live music. But local businesses and residents grew frustrated with the late-night crowds, the traffic, and the noise. They lobbied the city, and new curfew and anti-loitering ordinances were put in place. A strict 10 p.m. curfew for anyone under 18.
Stop, children, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.
The young people on the Strip didn't take it quietly. On November 12, 1966, flyers were distributed announcing a protest outside the Pandora's Box Club at the corner of Sunset Boulevard and Crescent Heights. That evening, as many as 1,000 demonstrators showed up, including a young Jack Nicholson and Peter Fonda, who was actually handcuffed by police. What started peacefully turned ugly. Busloads of police arrived. Arrests were made. The unrest continued for weeks. Buffalo Springfield had been the house band at the Whiskey A Go-Go right there on the Strip. Guitarist Stephen Stills witnessed what was happening firsthand. He described seeing what looked to him like an American city turning on its own youth, and he sat down and wrote, For What It's Worth, in about 15 minutes.
Stop, hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.
The song was recorded on December 5th, 1966, just a few weeks after the riots. 5 days after recording, local radio station KHJ was already playing it. By March 1967, it had peaked at number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100. It was later inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame in 2000.
Step out of line, the man come and take you away.
Number 8, Ode to Billie Joe by Bobby Gentry.
Billie Joe McAllister jumped off the Tallahatchie Bridge.
In the summer of 1967, a song came on the radio that stopped people cold. Not because it was loud or flashy, but because it was quiet and strange and impossible to shake.
And now you tell me Billie Joe's jumped off the Tallahatchie Bridge.
Ode to Billie Joe was written and performed by Bobby Gentry, a singer-songwriter who had grown up in the Mississippi Delta between two rivers, the Yazoo and the Tallahatchie. She wrote it with the intention of selling it to another artist, Lou Rawls actually. She only sang the demo herself because it was cheaper than hiring a professional vocalist. When she brought it to Capitol Records in early 1967, producer Kelly Gordon heard something in her voice and added a spare string arrangement, 4 violins and 2 cellos recorded quickly in leftover studio time from another session. Ode to Billie Joe was originally planned as the B-side to a different song, Mississippi Delta, but after the strings went in, something shifted and it got moved to the top.
Back to the house to eat.
Industry wisdom said it was too dark, too long, too strange for radio. The song tells the story of a rural Mississippi family at the dinner table, talking almost casually about a local boy, Billie Joe McAllister, who has just jumped off the Tallahatchie Bridge. The narrator knows more than she lets on. The family just passes the Black Eyed Peas. It debuted in July 1967, and by August 26th, it had knocked the Beatles' All You Need Is Love off the #1 spot on the Billboard Hot 100, where it held on for 4 weeks. The album of the same name then displaced Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band from the top of the album charts. Gentry won 3 Grammy Awards that year: Best New Artist, Best Vocal Performance Female, and Best Arrangement Instrumental and Vocals, the last of which she shared with arranger Jimmy Haskell.
Billie Joe McAllister jumped off the Tallahatchie.
The mystery at the center of the song, what was thrown off the bridge, became one of the most talked about questions in American pop culture. Gentry spent years deflecting it. She always said the real point of the song was the indifference of the people around the table, the way a family could casually discuss a boy's death while passing the food. The mystery she felt was a distraction from what she was actually trying to say. The song was selected by the Library of Congress for preservation in the National Recording Registry in 2023. Gentry herself stepped away from public life in the mid-1970s and has rarely been seen since. The song, though, kept going without her.
Billie Joe McAllister jumped off the Tallahatchie Bridge.
Number 7. Time of the Season by the Zombies. One of the most extraordinary things about Time of the Season is that it became a massive hit for a band that had already broken up. The Zombies formed in St. Albans, England in the early 1960s, led by keyboardist Rod Argent and singer Colin Blunstone. They had a genuine hit in 1964 with She's Not There, which topped the Cashbox chart and reached number 2 on Billboard. But by late 1967, their second album had been recorded, and they were done. The band officially broke up following a performance at Keele University in December 1967. Just before the end, they had gone into Abbey Road Studios to finish that second album. Argent had written a final song the week before they arrived and told his flatmate and bandmate Chris White he thought it could be a hit. Nobody believed him. That song was Time of the Season. The album, Odyssey and Oracle, the title was misspelled by the cover designer and remained that way, was released in the UK in April 1968. It went almost entirely unnoticed. CBS Records in America initially decided not to release it at all. The label changed course only because staff producer Al Cooper, who happened to pick up a copy during a trip to London, fell completely in love with it and personally pushed for a US release. Even then, it struggled. 2 singles from the album flopped. Time of the Season was only released as a third attempt. And at first, it seemed headed the same way. Then, a DJ in Boise, Idaho started playing it repeatedly. Other stations picked it up. Word spread slowly, organically, for months. By early 1969, the song had peaked at number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 1 on Cashbox.
What's your name? What's your name? Who's your daddy? Who's your daddy?
Number 6. Waterloo Sunset by The Kinks.
Waterloo Sunset, I am in paradise.
Ray Davies woke up one morning in early 1967 with a song already fully formed in his head. He said it came to him in a dream. The melody, the mood, all of it just waiting there when he opened his eyes. By 1967, Davies had turned inward as a songwriter. He was writing something different, quieter, more personal, more rooted in the London he actually knew. He had crossed Waterloo Bridge every day as a student traveling to Croydon Art School. He had been hospitalized as a child in St. Thomas's Hospital, which looks out over the Thames near Waterloo Station. The place was deep in his memory. The song describes a lone observer looking out a window at two lovers crossing the bridge in the evening light. Someone watching the world from the sidelines, quietly content. Davies was reluctant to share the lyrics with the rest of the band. He later called them an extract from a diary nobody was allowed to read. The song had originally been titled Liverpool Sunset. Davies loved Liverpool and Merseybeat and had started writing it as a tribute to that city. But when the Beatles released Penny Lane, he shifted the location back to where his real memories were. Waterloo Sunset reached number 2 on the British charts after its release in May 1967. In America, it failed to chart at all. The album it appeared on, Something Else by the Kinks, also struggled commercially despite being widely admired by critics. Over time, the song's reputation grew to something remarkable. Rolling Stone ranked it number 14 on their 2021 list of the 500 greatest songs of all time. Critic Robert Christgau famously called it the most beautiful song in the English language. Ray Davies performed it at the closing ceremony of the 2012 London Olympics. A song that barely made a dent in America when it was released, now considered one of the finest recordings of the entire decade.
Waterloo Sunset, I am in paradise.
Number 5. Season of the Witch by Donovan.
Must be the season of the witch.
In 1966, most pop music was chasing a hit. Season of the Witch wasn't chasing anything. Donovan Leitch was a Scottish singer-songwriter who had come up in the British folk scene, often compared to Bob Dylan in his early years. By 1966, he was moving somewhere else entirely, into a moody, atmospheric space that was harder to categorize. Season of the Witch came out that year as part of his album Sunshine Superman.
Must be the season of the witch.
The song is built around a slow, repeating guitar figure that feels like it's circling something rather than moving toward it. Donovan's vocal delivery is casual, almost conversational, which only makes the whole thing feel stranger. It has the quality of someone telling you something important without quite explaining what it means. There are no monsters or horror movie cliches in the lyric. It's more a feeling than a story. A sense that the world has shifted, that even a neighbor walking past doesn't feel quite right anymore. It captured something real about the mid-60s counterculture, the excitement and the unease existing at exactly the same time.
What do you think I see? What do you think I see?
The song didn't chart as a single, but it found its audience through the album and through FM radio, where its length and mood made it ideal for late-night listening. It has since been covered dozens of times and used in film and television whenever a director wants to conjure something ominous about the era. Among the best-known cover versions was one by Al Kooper and Stephen Stills, released in 1968. Donovan went on to become one of the first Western pop musicians to travel to India to study transcendental meditation with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. Alongside the Beatles in early 1968, he is often remembered for his lighter, more whimsical work. But Season of the Witch is the one that still sounds like it could have been recorded last week, and means something different every time you hear it.
Must be the season of the witch.
Number 4, I Had Too Much to Dream Last Night by the Electric Prunes. If you've never heard of the Electric Prunes, you're far from alone. They were a Los Angeles garage band who released their debut single in late 1966, and for a brief, unusual moment, they had the music world's attention. I Had Too Much to Dream Last Night is a full plunge into what would later be called psychedelic rock. The opening guitar riff is distorted and disorienting in a way that didn't sound quite like anything else at the time. The production, heavy on reverb and fuzz, gives the whole song a dizzy, dreamlike quality that matched the title exactly. Vocalist James Lowe delivers the lyric with a kind of helpless intensity, like someone genuinely unable to separate a dream from waking life. The song peaked at number 11 on the Billboard Hot 100. It appeared on the influential 1972 compilation Nuggets, original artifacts from the first psychedelic era assembled by Lenny Kaye, which helped define how people understood garage rock and the early psychedelic movement. That inclusion gave the song a second life and introduced it to a whole new generation of listeners who hadn't been around for the original release. The Electric Prunes went on to record a few more singles and albums, including a Mass in F minor in 1968, a psychedelic interpretation of a Catholic Mass arranged by composer David Axelrod, unlike almost anything else released in the decade. The band dissolved by 1969, but the opening seconds of I Had Too Much to Dream Last Night are still immediately recognizable. The kind of sound that doesn't age because it was never quite of its time to begin with.
Too much to drink. I'm not ready to...
Number 3, Gentle on My Mind by Glenn Campbell and John Hartford.
I dip my cup of soup back from the gurgling, crackling cauldron.
This one has a slightly unusual story because the song really belongs to two people. John Hartford was a banjo player and songwriter from Nashville who wrote Gentle on My Mind in 1966. Reportedly inspired by the film Dr. Zhivago, the song had an unconventional structure, no traditional chorus, verses that looped back on themselves, rhymes that came and went without settling into a pattern. It was more like a poem set to music than a typical country song. Hartford recorded it himself first, and his version was released as a single in May 1967 on RCA Records.
I dip my cup of soup back from the gurgling, crackling cauldron in some...
Then Glenn Campbell heard it on the radio, went into Capitol Studios with a group of his Wrecking Crew session colleagues, and recorded his own version. Campbell's recording was released in June 1967, and it gradually found its audience. Between Hartford's and Campbell's recordings, Gentle on My Mind won 4 Grammy Awards at the 1968 ceremony, Best Country and Western Recording and Best Country and Western Solo Vocal Performance, male for Campbell, and Best Country and Western Song and Best Folk Performance for Hartford as the songwriter.
I beard a rough-knit coal pile and a dirty hat pulled over across my...
Gentle on My Mind went on to become one of the most performed songs in the BMI catalog. It served as the closing theme for the Glenn Campbell Good Time Hour on CBS from 1969 to 1972, which meant millions of Americans heard it week after week for years, and yet it has largely faded from the conversation about the 60s. The music is unhurried, the imagery personal, rivers, railroad tracks, sleeping bags. A wanderer who belongs nowhere in particular. It doesn't try to be big, it just tries to be honest. John Hartford, who had a long career as a musician, songwriter, and steamboat enthusiast, always appreciated what Campbell did with his song. Campbell returned to it for the rest of his career. It was one of those rare cases where the songwriter and the performer both seemed to understand exactly what the song was, and neither one overshadowed the other.
I dip my cup of soup back from the gurgling, crackling cauldron.
Number 2, Build Me Up Buttercup by The Foundations. Few songs have made as many people involuntarily smile as Build Me Up Buttercup. It's one of those tracks that feels both joyful and a little heartbreaking at the same time. The story of someone who keeps getting let down by the person they love, but just can't stop coming back. The Foundations were a London-based group with an ethnically diverse lineup, drawn from Britain, the West Indies, and Sri Lanka, and a sound that blended soul, pop, and rhythm and blues. Build Me Up Buttercup was released in late 1968 and reached number 2 in the UK. In the United States, it climbed to number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100, spending 15 weeks on the chart. The song was written by Mike Dabeau, who was also the lead singer of Manfred Mann at the time, and producer Tony McCauley. The verses are pleading and frustrated, and then the chorus opens up bright and wide, even though the subject matter is essentially about being stood up over and over again. It became one of those songs that turns up everywhere, films, commercials, television, because it captures something instantly recognizable about being young and infatuated. It appeared in the 1998 film There's Something About Mary, which introduced it to an entirely new generation. It's the kind of song people feel they remember from their own lives even if they've never quite tracked down who made it. The Foundations had other hits, but none matched the combination of pure feeling and the pure craftsmanship that Build Me Up Buttercup packed into a little over 3.5 minutes. Number 1, Sunny Afternoon by the Kinks.
All I've got's this sunny afternoon.
The Kinks appear on this list twice, and there's a reason for that. Ray Davies was writing at a level in the mid to late 60s that very few songwriters anywhere could match, and a lot of the best of it never got the recognition it deserved. Sunny Afternoon was released in June 1966, and it knocked the Beatles' Paperback Writer off the #1 spot on the UK charts, where it held for 2 weeks. In America, it reached number 14 on the Billboard Hot 100, and yet, it has largely faded from the standard conversation about the British invasion.
I got a big fat mama trying to break.
The song tells the story of a wealthy man whose money and girlfriend have both disappeared, leaving him with nothing but a bottle of wine and the sunshine on a lazy afternoon. Davies wrote it from the perspective of an invented character, a fallen aristocrat, as a way of processing his own difficult feelings at the time. He had suffered a nervous and physical breakdown earlier that year under the pressures of the band's rapid rise, and writing through a character gave him a certain distance from what he was actually feeling. The music is relaxed and almost vaudevillian, with a rolling piano line that sounds exactly like what the words describe. Underneath all that pleasantness, there's a portrait of someone who once had everything and now has considerably less, and who carries it with a kind of crooked dignity. Part of why the song didn't cement the Kinks' reputation in America is that the band was still serving out a touring ban imposed by the American Federation of Musicians following their chaotic 1965 US tour, during which disputes with promoters and union officials led to the ban. That kept them out of the country for 4 years, 4 years during which they couldn't perform to support their music, and during which some of their finest work went largely unheard there. It's a song that rewards returning to. The better you know it, the funnier and sadder it gets.
All I've got's this sunny afternoon.
10 songs from the 1960s that deserve to be heard, remembered, and played loud on a warm afternoon when the world is moving a little too fast. What's remarkable about music from that decade is how alive it still feels. These weren't just songs. They were made by people going through real things: grief, uncertainty, love, loss, and the strange feeling that the world was changing faster than anyone could keep up with. That comes through whether you're hearing them for the first time or the 100th. If any of these took you back to a moment you'd have forgotten or introduced you to something brand new, we'd love to know. Drop your favorite in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe. There are plenty more hidden gems where these came from.